Laura back again, this time with Johnson and Scholes, the cultural web model. This is one of the key cultural models across all of the SIPS qualifications. The cultural web looks like a flower. Right in the centre we have the paradigm or the underlying assumptions of the organisation. And throughout, the paradigm is impacted by these petals, if you will, these circles around it. So I like to think the paradigm is impacted by them, but the paradigm also has an impact on these other areas. So these 6 sections that you need to learn are control systems, routines and rituals, organisation structures, power structures, stories and symbols. And the best way to remember this is by taking the first letter, and if you take the first letter of all of them, then it spells out either crops PS or crops with a double P, double S. The purpose of this model is to really look at the factors that impact the culture of the organisation. These are wide and varied, and it allows you to drill in and look at how a culture is built and how the paradigm is impacted. And we're going to drill into each of these areas now. The first area is the paradigm. The paradigm is the underlying assumptions of the organisation. It's their deep-held beliefs. For example, like Marks and Spencer's might think that they are the jewel in the British retail crown. And as I mentioned, the paradigm influences and is influenced by the 6 factors surrounding it in the cultural web. The next area is control systems. Control systems are about the ways that an organisation is controlled. So this includes the financial systems, the quality systems, the rewards available, the employee behaviour policies. All of these impact the culture. The more controls that you have in place, the more formalised the culture, and maybe the more wary they are of thinking outside the box in some ways. The next area is rituals and routines. These are the daily behaviours and actions of people that signal what's acceptable behaviour in your organisation. This determines what is expected to happen in given circumstances and situations. And these differ depending on the organisation. Maybe you have the dress down Fridays or the fat Fridays where you get to eat whatever you want. In an organisation where I worked, it was that we had a ritual that they brought fruit round at a certain point of the day. And if there wasn't a kiwi, then people would go crazy. The next section, organisation structures. Organisation structures include both the structure defined by the organisation chart and the unwritten lines of power and influence. Some people in the organisation aren't necessarily in a position of power, but they've been there long enough that they know everyone and they have this kind of personal power or access to the people in the hierarchy, like, I don't know, the chief exec's PA. Power structures. Power structures are all about the pockets of real power within that company. And the key is that these people have the greatest amount of influence on decisions and strategic direction. So these are the ones that directly impact the culture the most. If we're looking for examples here, a power structure could be how much power the actual individual line managers have, or whether they're forced into a situation where things have to go up the hierarchy to the higher echelons. The next area is stories. Stories are all about the past events and people talked about inside and outside the company. For example, Marks and Spencer's originated as a penny bazaar, a penny shop, and then grew into the retail empire that it is now. Every company has an origin story, or a story of when they did amazingly and won that huge project or brought out that new product, whatever it may be. And that creates part of the culture of that organisation. And the final area in the cultural web are symbols. Symbols are the visual representations of the company that includes the logos, how fancy your offices are, and the formal or informal dress codes. So it depends on the organisation. Some of the symbols could be the director's lift or elevator. It could be that you've got very modern facilities. When I worked for a council, we were actually in the eaves of the building where the pigeons were, so it wasn't quite as fancy. So those are all of the factors that impact the cultural web. Thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe. Bye for now.